Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Vocal Arts. I'm your host, Peter Barber, professional singer and music producer, and I just had the great pleasure of chatting with Mortius. Almost certainly you guys are familiar with Mortius, a fellow reaction and analysis creator who has rose to the top of the ranks of the musical community. He is now basically an expert on that subject, so I wanted to bring him on to chat a lot about Epic, but we ended up talking for almost 2 hours about everything under the sun, from his musical upbringing, past jobs, career goals, creating Open Arms with Casper, future musical projects for himself, and so much more. If you guys stick around to the end, you'll learn a lot about the real Mortius, who he is on and off camera. It was really wonderful chatting with him. So, guys, please enjoy the conversation. Cheers. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Vocal Arts. I am here with Mortius. Mortius, who are you? Please give the people a little elevator pitch.
Yeah, I am a reactor. I am a singer. I am a sort of performer in my own right on YouTube. I got my start reacting to a cappella since that is my wheelhouse in both sort of performance and awareness, and have recently shifted to kind of my other wheelhouse in both my knowledge and past performance history, which is Broadway.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah, before we, because Epic and what you're doing with your new channels is going to
Mhm.
be certainly a part of our discussion, but let's wind it back first. I'm actually really interested in kind of your upbringing and the musical environment you grew up in, and then how that carried you. Let's get kind of phase one of life. So, like up through undergrad, what did your musical life look like?
I love that. Well, first of all, you are getting way ahead of yourself, even just with the word undergrad, because believe it or not, zero college from this guy. Not a single minute of it. I grew up in small town Washington, a town that is no longer as small as it used to be, but was much smaller when I was there. We had one high school that served three towns, and that's where I kind of found my love for music. Well, I guess my love for creating music. I've always had love for listening to it. The earliest video we have of me, like actually as a kid, is me very young doing my very best to babble along to Beauty and the Beast, which was my favorite Disney movie for a very, very long time. And honestly, probably still my second favorite Disney movie to this day. And so I grew up just surrounded by the music and the love for it. And then when I got to high school, I started doing it for myself. I joined the choir, I joined the drama program, I found community in kind of performing arts and everything like that. And it was just really special. It was the first time I really felt community, really felt like I really belonged. It was a very like sort of rednecky town without a lot of like that sort of ability. And growing up, not to get like too hard into this, but growing up like very religious, but not sure how I felt about it. And then growing up queer, but didn't know it yet, all in this very conservative town. Like this was the
Mhm.
place where I found my belonging, where I found my escape.
What are some of your favorite memories and experiences from your time in high school theater? Like what shows you did and such?
I mean, honestly, I think my most of my favorite memories come from ironically the times where we weren't performing. Not to say that the performances weren't absolutely incredible, but like as soon as you say like what were your favorite memories, three immediately popped in my head, and two of them were from the week before the show when we were there for like 10 hours just painting sets and screaming Broadway show tunes and everything like that. That final stage of just like, hey, show's next week. Our set isn't done. And it's just a bunch of teenagers running around with paintbrushes and drills doing their best. Those are all my favorite memories. It's always been about the community for me. And I think that's really informed the performing venues and avenues I've found since then, as well as just how I approach my content, honestly.
Yeah,
Very, very community driven.
awesome. So why no college? What was the decision like? What was your thought process at the end of high school?
So actually, I had been accepted to a small community college up in Washington, Bellevue Community College. Um, and I was going to go there for just 2 years, just for like your general ed, and then either decide that was good enough or transfer to a bigger one afterwards. I've never been the most academic, honestly. And so college felt very daunting to me, but I wanted to go there, wanted to try. I'd already, like I said, been accepted. But then I got this really cool opportunity to go and talk to someone down in San Diego who was the person who invented the role that I most wanted, which we can kind of hop into. It's a
Please.
very different kind of role than you might be expecting, but I got the opportunity to talk with that person, and he kind of hit me with well, like, hey, in September, I've got open auditions and I want you there. And so I called my mom and was like, "Hey, I'm moving to San Diego." And she's like, what do you mean?" And literally I emailed Bellevue Community College and said, "Nope, sorry, moved to San Diego with a roommate who had been a friend from high school and just did my best." I went to
Wow.
auditions. I got various different jobs. I got the job that completely changed my life at the same place that those auditions were, even though it wasn't in the entertainment department. I joined the San Diego Gay Men's Chorus, where I found performance and community. Like, it was a whole thing.
That is a full send to just bail on college to go do an open audition.
Yep. And it didn't work. I didn't get it, but the place I was auditioning at, I got a different job at. And if I hadn't gotten that job, I wouldn't have found the love and expertise that I have towards the career I'm in now. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have, like, everything happened because of the job that was in a different department at the place whiffed the audition for.
That's fantastic. And that's taking
All happens
action,
for a
man.
reason.
No, I respect that big time. Just going for it. I mean, it's the only way. It's the only way to make things happen. You have to take action.
Yeah.
I heard this great quote the other day that basically says the only way to do the thing is to do the thing. Preparing to do the thing is not doing the thing. You know, writing about the thing is not doing the thing. Organizing to do the thing is not doing the thing. Like, at some
Hmm.
point, you just have to do the thing.
Yes. And that's exactly what you're talking about, like the preparing for it. Because even when I was going to my 2 years at Bellevue, it was going to be, all right, 2 years at Bellevue and then go down to San Diego to try and land this role. That was always the plan. One of our senior year projects was making a PowerPoint about like a career I wanted, and it was literally like that role. The, I just my senior year we had a talent show, and what I did for that talent show was a recreation of a bit from that same character. Everything that I did was informed by my desire to go follow that dream, and it never happened. And that's okay.
That is so interesting. So those years, let's say 18 to 22 or 18 to
Yeah.
24, when you would when a lot of people go to undergrad and maybe a master's program, what did those years look like for you? Was that all San Diego and gay men's chorus and theater and such like that?
Yep, that's all exactly correct. It was going to a bunch of auditions, doing my job at that same place. And it was nice because they kind of like to hire internally. I know this is a controversial place. We are going to chat with there are many opinions about it, and I have plenty of content on my own platforms of the pros and cons I learned, but it was SeaWorld San Diego. It was that entertainment department, those shows that I felt a huge calling for. And so while I was doing those auditions, I was working in the education department, actually, which is where I found the passion, like I said, for the career path I have kind of followed since then outside of content creation. And so those kind of 4 or 5 years you're talking about were spent at SeaWorld San Diego, going to every single audition they had, but also just learning about and teaching about the animals, using like the sort of microphone as my own stage, almost to kind of prove it was really great because the entertainment department heads would still walk through the park, and every once in a while, like I would see them and be like, "So what you can see here is the sea lions," and I really like put on my show for them. It was almost like a pseudo audition as I'm educating about these. So really, in a weird way, my little microphone stand next to these animals became my stage for 5 years while I was trying to find what my long-term stage would be.
And what kind of performances were you auditioning there? What kinds of shows do they put on?
So a lot of those, the number one role, and anyone who went to SeaWorld as a kid in San Diego is instantly going to be like, yes, that. There is this role at the Sea Lion and Otter show named Biff, and he is a janitor, just a total goofy guy. Like he's supposed to be really unassuming. He comes out and is just like sweeping the stage, and like the first time you go, you're like, is this a bit or is this actually just like the maintenance that happens before the show? And at one point, he's like cleaning behind something. He grabs this like records case and he like goes over and plugs it in, and he does this like whole like karaoke like jukebox dance routine, and that's what I did for like the talent show. There's got to be a recording of it somewhere. He goes through like Footloose, then Tequila, then Singing in the Rain, and then it like ends with like I've had the time of my life. It's such a funny bit, and it just was always something I wanted to do.
Amazing. And that would have been if you were doing roles with the SeaWorld there, that would have been
Mhm.
like a full-time musical career, musical position.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the role. That one would have been because that show happens year round. I actually did get to do a single season stint in the entertainment department, which is kind of like what I was able to be like, you know what? I like that whole like shoot for the moon. If you miss, you land among the stars. It's like I never got to be Biff, and a small part of me, like that's little kid inside me, is like, what? You never got it after like 8 auditions, but I still got to perform. I got to be one of the costume characters for their Halloween spectacular, which was super cool. Had this incredible wig and costume. Has like a little like bubblegum like themed outfit because they were all candy characters, and I stole one of the beads and I still have it. If anyone from SeaWorld is watching this, no, I didn't. But so yeah, it was really cool.
Okay. And then when I met you, when I
Mhm.
met you for the first time,
Yeah.
and for a while along that, as our friendship developed, you were living in Vegas,
Yes.
I believe. So what brought you from San Diego to Vegas, and was there anything in between?
So that was actually a not the best story, unfortunately.
Mm,
So in San Diego, was when I had met my wife. Not wife. We married once we were in Vegas. So at the time, just girlfriend, long-term partner, whatever we want to call it these
yeah.
days.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we had been living together for a little bit, and I knew she was born and raised San Diego, so she wanted to get out. I always knew I wanted to move back to the Pacific Northwest, but we were like, man, like it's so expensive doing like a big move like that. What do we want to do? And my family at the time had been living in Vegas. And then my mom unfortunately got into a really bad car accident. Like we're talking like brain trauma, spinal reconstruction kind of car accident. And so I was kind of presented with this like very sort of life-shattering, life-altering kind of news. And we kind of came up with a plan. I was like, man, like what do we want to do? And we came up with this game plan. We were like, well, living costs like in Vegas outskirts are pretty inexpensive right now. So maybe we do something where like we know, like we intentionally pick jobs where we know these aren't going to be long-term forever careers. They're like maybe furthering, and we just spend 3 to 5 years in Vegas. My brothers were 12 and 14 at the time, so we were like, we'll get to help my mom. with her recovery, get to take care of my brothers when they need it, get to be in the same state as them as they're graduating high school, essentially the last years of them becoming full-fledged adults, which they are now. My little itty bitty brothers are 18 and 20 now. What? But
Almost the exact same for my baby sisters.
yeah, exactly. So, we were able to be in the same state as them for that. So it was kind of just a stint of like helping my mom with her recovery, being in the same state as my brothers, and kind of living under our income as much as we could so that we could kind of build up a nest egg so that when we moved up to Oregon, we were actually able to buy instead of rent. We got houses at
Mm.
26, which is pretty amazing, or a house at 26,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
fantastic.
not easy these days.
No, it's not. Can speak from recent experience.
Yeah.
So what were the odd jobs you guys kind of picked while you were in Vegas?
So for my wife is a teacher, so hers wasn't so much of an odd job. It was just a like she was very clear from the get-go, like this is a temporary position for me. So she still went from teaching in San Diego to teaching in Vegas to teaching in Oregon.
Hmm.
But it was very much like a she wasn't trying to like rise through the ranks there. She wasn't trying to like set herself up for long-term success at that school. Like that school district has a high turnover rate, and so they just knew like they had her for 3 to 5 years. I was working in the same school district as a special education instructor.
Ah,
Yeah.
my uncle does that down in
Oh yeah.
Texas. You have got to be like a beautiful soul to do that kind of work, Mortius.
It's
For
tough.
real. Yeah. And so did you guys actually end up staying in Vegas for the 3 to 5 years?
It ended up being the minimum side of that. We were saying 3 to 5. We were definitely thinking it was going to be closer to 5, but at that 3 year mark, Jess started reaching out to more schools and such in the area, just being like, "Hey," because we knew we wanted to move to a small town. Small town schools do not have a high turnover rate. They have huge retention, and so you got to put your feelers out pretty far in advance. So she reached out to
Hmm.
a couple different schools, like, "Hey, any of you have a science positioning opening soon?" And the principal of where we ended up at was like, "Yes, this upcoming year, please apply." And we were like, "Oh my gosh." So it like she started reaching out as like, "Hey, maybe I'll put my feelers out for the next couple of years in like February." And we were moving in June. It was a like real
Okay.
unexpected opportunity. But
Okay.
yeah, we were there for 3 years.
Before we get to Oregon,
Okay.
how did you meet your wife?
So that's a really fun story. My wife's sister was a coworker at SeaWorld. So, how I mentioned I wouldn't have met my wife if not through SeaWorld. So, I've we're about to get real here.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
the place
talked
for it.
about it. I talked about it a bit in a couple of recent reactions, but I didn't go super far into it. So, like, kind of content warning for you guys for some heavy stuff. But I had had sort of a roommate slash unhealthy situationship slash relationship thing going on for a bit that in retrospect was extremely unhealthy in multiple directions, but had ended with a just really bad thing, essentially from him to me that led to like restraining an order, everything like that. Like it was a very, very bad experience that
Mhm.
I've kind of, like I said, touched on in some recent reactions. A lot of my content recently has been kind of going through sort of that healing journey and what it takes to kind of move past something like that. But so there was a period of time where I was really just trying to kind of focus on myself. But what I didn't know was at that time, kind of shifting back to a positive thing, at that time, this coworker that I'd gotten really close to had kind of for like a year or so been like, this dude and my sister would get along really well. But my wife was finishing her last year of school. So she was not in a position to like add anything else because last year of teaching school is like full-time college and part-time student teaching. It's bonkers. I just the previous summer had gone through the worst month of my life, and had literally just like finished multiple months of court cases, just trying to get a semblance of justice that really only partially came.
Hmm.
But right around sort of the same time, we had done this event with a bunch of coworkers that ended up at a like bar afterwards, and we were all like joking around, trying to play matchmaker for another one of our coworkers. And after we had done that, I kind of offhandedly mentioned aha, me next, like you know how we'll like be like that, like oh, like when are you guys gonna find someone for me? And she's like. I thought you weren't I thought you weren't really looking for someone after like what happened with Name. And I was like, I mean, yes, but it's been almost a year. Like I need to start being okay again, kind of start getting out there. She was like, so that wasn't completely a joke? And I'm like, no. And she goes, and I'll never forget it because I swear she looked into my soul, had like the gears turning of just like, all right, this is the moment. Do I, as a big sister, do I actually want to do this? She took like the longest sip of her pie I have ever seen and just went, okay, do you want to meet my sister? And I was like, where did that come from? And so my coworker I was super close to set us up with this blind date isn't the right word. Like we had seen like pictures of each other and such, but we had not talked at all, even like over text, kind of set us up with this like meet date at a event being hosted by one of our other coworkers. And oh my gosh, from the first conversation, like we were at a because my our other coworker was actually a like semi-pro hockey player, weirdly enough.
Hmm.
We all had different gigs because Seaworld was part-time, and so we all had weird different gigs here. And so, man, I cannot tell you a single thing that happened in that hockey game, but I can tell you every conversation the two of us had. It was life was never the same.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so rare that a matchmaking situation works out
Yeah,
that well,
it
right?
I
Not
mean,
just like, oh yeah, we went on a few dates, it was fun.
yeah.
Like, nope, that's my wife
I mean,
forever.
yeah, no, she was right.
Amazing, man. That's so great. Okay, back to Oregon.
Yes.
So I am a full disclosure, a complete slut for sunshine is what I call it. That's why I live in Arizona and I love it here every single day. And I'm going to Vegas for 3 weeks coming up and I can't wait to hang out there for a few weeks. I loved my time at USC when I was there. I've loved my summers in Santa Barbara when I've gotten to spend summers there for
Hmm.
opera. I could never, I'm never going to leave, but I could never live in the Northwest for that reason. Even though there's so many amazing things about it. I just love the sunshine and warmth too much. So how did you guys land on that place as
I
your
mean,
forever home?
it's September 20th and I have to have my blinds closed, otherwise the sun's gonna mess with my lighting. Like Oregon has more sun than people expect it to, honestly.
Parts of it, right? Aren't there some?
Yes, it definitely depends on where in Oregon, but where I am, it's like the issue is that once the sun decides to leave, it's gone for like 3 months straight. So that's when like the seasonal depression and
Uh,
things like that hit. But like we get sun honestly 9 months out of the year. Like our spring and fall are still very sunny.
oh,
And
okay.
so that kind of helps kind of fight off a lot of that because I love the sun, but I don't like the heat. So
Okay.
Vegas and San Diego got to me a lot in like those summers and things like that. I definitely like my favorite weather, I always say, is like a crisp sunny morning. Like when you can feel the sun, but like the air has a little bit of bite and like a little bit of like frost crunch. That is my ideal weather. So I still love the sun, and that's why Oregon is perfect. And part of why I didn't want to go all the way back up to Washington because where I grew up was not like that.
That was my
But
follow-up.
we
It must
we
be
did
different. It must be different in Washington.
yes, we did our research on like climates, living costs, and things like that. And this sort of central Oregon around like the Eugene Salem area is where we landed as kind of that happy medium.
I'm actually really with
Yeah,
you
well,
on I love a crisp, sunny morning.
yeah,
The heat just also doesn't bother me, but
yeah,
it's but only dry heat. I do not like the humid heat. So like I've spent time in Houston for like vocal competitions and stuff in the summer. Absolute for me, absolutely miserable. But I can be out in Phoenix when it's ridiculously hot, but the dry heat, I'm like, I've got a
fair.
pool. I've got a pool right here. I've got central AC. Like
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it.
Well, I will say if you're anti-humidity, don't work at a theme park on the San Diego coast for 5 years. That's my biggest piece of advice. God, those shifts were brutal.
Yeah, if it's humid heat, I need to be like swimming.
Yeah.
I don't just want to be out and just moist for no good reason.
Yeah, no, every once in a while we would get to like midday and I'd start looking at the animal exhibits and being like, I could jump in.
I
It'd be
could
worth it.
I
I
could
could
I
I
could
could
I
go
could
for
hang
a
out with a
swim.
sea lion for a minute.
Who would notice? I could do a quick dip and get back out. Who would
Biff
really
Biff would
know?
totally do a quick dip.
See, and that's why he had it made because in the singing in the rain bit, they had like water coming off of the set and
Oh,
going down on top, and he had his little umbrella. That man had it made. He got to
Biff
splash in the thing because it was also a pre-show bit. So he came out before the animals, which meant he was allowed to be in the water.
Biff knows best.
Yeah, Biff knows best.
Okay, so when did you guys get to Oregon? Like year, and then how does that tie into the start of the pandemic?
It was 2 years ago, so it was actually post-pandemic. Vegas,
Oh,
Vegas was our
oh,
pandemic
of
time.
course, because I met you during the pandemic, right?
Exactly. So Vegas
Okay.
was the pandemic time. It was while I was doing like that special education that we went social distancing, which, woo, oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
already fun trying to explain math to a kid with autism, but
Yeah.
doing it over a video screen is a whole nother adventure. But that's also when I was looking for some creative outlets and creative escapes. And that's when I started actually live streaming, which is where a lot of people don't know that I got my start. I made my first YouTube video probably a year and a half after I was already decently established on Twitch as a creator, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I had
Not
no.
like not like crazy numbers or anything like that, but I had my own pretty dedicated community, and it helped that the primary game I played was very community based. And so I did like some collabs and co-streams with some bigger creators in that community because of how community based it was. And I was always like playing levels by those creators and getting my levels played by them. Because the game in question was Mario Maker, which is like where you can make your own Mario levels. And so
Ooh, fun.
yeah, it's really cool. You get to create like your own platforming levels. But so that had a lot of community driven nature to it because people want to come to your stream and be like, hey, will you play my level and give me feedback? And so I would then go to the bigger creators and be like, hey, will you play my level and give me feedback? And then when they made a level, they would be like, hey, who is that like one guy who said he streamed? I should go to his stream and give him my level. And of course, that then brought a ton of viewers to me. So it was very collaborative, very
Hmm.
community based. I mean, I had like, I think like 800 followers. So far from like a big name or anything like that,
But
but it
that's
was a
good on
pretty
Twitch, right? I
exactly on
mean,
Twitch, and that was a pretty good community. And you're gonna be blown away. You want to know? I actually have a few still fans who are from the Twitch days. Do you want to know who one of my first Twitch moderators was on the official Mortius Twitch.tv?
oh my gosh, tell me.
Little dude by the name of Magic Mason.
Ah,
He is literally one of the
wow.
OGs from like my Twitch Mario Maker days.
And he must have been like what, halfway through high school at
Oh
that point.
yeah.
He's so young. I forget how young he
Yeah.
is. Wow, okay. How did you and why did you jump the gap from Twitch streaming into YouTube doing completely different content?
That is another instance where it was finding a blessing and unexpectedly a future in a sort of unfortunate circumstance. I don't know if you know this. I think actually you might know it a little bit because I remember you laughing with Marwin when Arabian Nights literally physically broke me. But I have chronic pain in my back and left hip, which flares up sometimes, and that can have sometimes a pretty significant impact on my mental health, of course. And
Yeah.
so I was supposed to go to work on this random Friday because I was working 5 days a week at the time, and I woke up barely able to move. And so I had to call out from work. It was just one of those days with a really bad flare up. And so I like was just in my bed for a little bit, and I was just like, God, this like my mental health was getting to me, and I'm like, no, I need my outlet. I need to go stream. And so I like slowly limped myself over to like my chair. And as I was and I'd kind of been considering making YouTube content for a bit. I had put a couple of like edited Twitch VODs on YouTube. They were doing garbage numbers because of course they were. And so I go to sit down, and as I'm going to set up stream, I often will have just like a YouTube video on in the background. For just like background noise while I'm doing like my normal stream setup. And as I pulled up YouTube, I saw 31 minutes ago voice play. My mother told me and went,
Oh
you
boy.
know what? I love like Hannah Bales and charismatic voice. Like these are reactors that like I've been watching for a while, and I had already been a fan of voice play for years, and I'd considered like, do I want to make like reaction content? But like I didn't want to have to deal with like the copyright stuff, like the shows I wanted to react to and things like that. And so originally I was thinking like show reactions and things like that, you know? But I think I literally like just the week before watched another reactor checking out one of the voice play covers. I think it might have been even like charismatic voice Oogie Boogie or whatever. And I was like, I could do something like that. I've got my like musical knowledge. And so I was essentially chair ridden in massive pain, looking for a creative outlet, and went, yeah, I'm already sitting in front of a camera. I've already got a green screen. I already have a functional OBS for my Twitch stream. How much of a difference would it be to click record instead of start streaming and just make a video? And that video did insane numbers. Literally haven't missed a week since.
I can absolutely relate. When did I feel like we started at a very similar time?
Yeah.
My first video I think was July 2021.
Um, I think mine would have been April 2021. I mean, let's see.
Yeah, pull it up.
I'm curious. Um,
I
voice,
technically did that one for Bury a Friend for the Bass Gang. That was just because Bobby
mm,
wanted me to do
of
it,
course.
but at that point I was not planning to actually start. Jeff Castellucci, Misty Mountains was my first official.
Dang, we both had good big starts.
Yeah, I remember looking at the
Yes.
numbers at the end of that first day. I was like,
April
"Oh,
23, 2021.
wow." And
Yep. So yeah,
it was
very, very similar
and it
times.
was voice play. My mother
My
told
mother
me.
told me. Yep.
I'll never forget at the end of that day, because I had been making covers until then. I think I had like
Hmm.
3,000 subscribers
Yeah.
maybe after putting out covers. This was pre-Bass Gang, right? This is before. No, this is right after the Bass Gang released our first EP. So I'd done the summit with Bobby. But I remember I put out the Jeff video, and it just made every analytic on my channel look like a complete joke that came beforehand. At the end of the first day, it was like 3,000 views, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is not real. Like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I give up. I'll do the reaction analysis.
This is now what I'm
Do the
doing.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah. Remember people in the Bass Singing Nation Discord had just been hounding me to do it. And I was like,
Oh,
no,
really?
I don't like reactions. I hadn't really thought about them
Oh.
like educationally. I thought about them just like
Yeah.
someone just, just making the dumb faces, not even pausing the video. And
Yeah. Oh.
I still have no respect for that. But that was what I had in my mind. And so I resisted and resisted and resisted. And finally I
Of
didn't. And I was
course.
like, oh, you can do it. You can make it into like a music lesson, essentially, is what I'm
Hmm.
kind of going for.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, same. Haven't missed a week since. It's been over 3 years.
Yeah, the one time it was like 4 months in, I got my wisdom teeth taken out and literally made my wife do a reaction to a home free video so that I wouldn't miss an upload.
I love that. Okay, now to the
I'm
meat of
ready.
yes.
The
So
meat, the meat of the
we have
Mortius.
now perfectly segued into what you're up to now. Talk a little bit about your channel and the things you were covering, and then we were talking about this a little bit before the call, but I'd like you to rehash kind of this insane wave that you have ridden from
Ugh,
Epic
it's
Epic the
been
Musical.
crazy. Yeah, like I said, you and I were kind of talking about it already, but my growth had kind of plateaued to an extent. And I don't actually think that's the right word because plateau obviously implies that it went steady. But if you, I guess if you like angle it diagonally so that you're looking at it like a flat line, like it used to be kind of exponential growth and then kind of plateaued to just like a consistent uphill line. So it wasn't that I wasn't still growing, but it wasn't that I was growing any faster than I was the month before. You know, I was kind of just coasting, gaining a couple new people per. And I had actually been kind of public about the idea that I felt like, believe it or not, I was starting to see the signs of like, hey, maybe channel's on its way out. I watched this really good interview with Anthony Padilla and Matt Pat. And Matt Pat is someone who just understands the YouTube algorithm so well. And he was saying, like, there are studies done that are basically like, if you aren't able to bring in a completely different demographic, then YouTube channels have a shelf life of 3 to 4 years. Or sorry, 2 to 4 years. 2 to 4 years unless you are able to bring in a completely new demographic.
That makes so much sense.
One demographic has 2 to 4 years. Um,
Fascinating.
and I was thinking about that. I was thinking like about like the creators I used to follow, and I'm like, yeah, it was about 3 or 4 years in that like they stopped interesting me either because they kept with the content and I got bored, or because they changed their content to target a new demographic and I was no longer interested. But either way, that's about like my own longevity for enjoyment of things. And I
Hmm.
was looking and I like it said 2 to 4 years. And I watched that interview and I looked and I was like, I am at 2 years and 8 months. Huh. Well, okay. So I was kind of thinking to myself, like, hey, I'll keep doing this as long as the people want me to, but maybe eventually I go to like only doing it when a new voice player home free drops. Like I don't even have a weekly upload because I didn't want to have to like falsify myself just to find a new target audience. Like I
Sure.
had made a couple of videos with like Dimash and things like that, but I didn't love making them. They were
Fair.
fun to make, but they weren't my passion. I
Yeah.
wasn't passionate towards making them, even when it was my most viewed video pre-Epic,
Yeah. Yeah.
which now Epic has overtaken my Dimash video. So now my biggest video is something I'm passionate about again. Woo!
Boom.
But um, so I really was like, do I want to completely change? Do I want to like shift to like something like K-pop or something like that? And I was like, I really don't want to. So I'm gonna keep doing this as long as people may allow me to. And then I made my own edit to this crazy little song with the best lyrics I've ever heard. But when does a comet become a meteor? Is the perfect song for making edits. I made a couple of fan edits, and people were like, "You like Epic the Musical?" And I'm like, "What? No, I've just heard this song on TikTok. What are you talking about?" They're like, "You need to see it." And then so I was like, sure. I don't have anything for my Wednesday slot this week. Let's see what this is all about.
Ah.
I upload it. And for like the first 24 hours, it was at 10 of 10. Massively underperformed. Massively underperformed.
Oh.
And I was like looking and I'm like, oh, and I was genuinely thinking to myself, I'm like, man, if it keeps performing like this, do I even, because I split Troy Saga in just 2 videos. I did 2 songs in one, 3 in the other, because that was kind of what felt right for the length I was doing at the time. And so I was like, God, do I even want to upload the second half? Second day goes around, and it was like, like hit like 9 of 10. Like it crested just above like
Okay.
whatever like other small artist I had done like a couple weeks before, like maybe like a Voctave or something like that. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
crested to like 9 out of 10. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? As long as it's not still at 10 of 10, like I'll still upload the second one and then maybe watch the rest on my own. Day three, it went and I was like, what just happened? Legit, like it's looking at that graph is bonkers. I don't know how much like graphics you do for the podcast, but I will send you that like initial 7 day graph if you want to put it up because it's wild.
Yeah. Let me
Or
let
I'll
me
just
get
send
it.
you it for fun.
Let me put a timestamp in here.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so I mean, that's just been crazy. And being a part of the Epic the Musical community, they are a force to be reckoned with like no other. They are so supportive while also being so fervorous. Fervent, there's a word, there's a vocabulary
Servants.
word, fervent, thank you. But just like so passionate about this franchise and about this project to a point that can occasionally be intimidating, but mostly
Yeah.
is a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
And it's just been crazy being involved in this community to the point where like now I'm getting to like work with these other creators. I'm having people like recognize me just in like epic community spaces.
Hmm.
This reactor who I used to be a fan of like reached out to me because they like recognized and liked my work. I'm going to be, it's not official yet, but I am going to be actually guiding a like big name reactor through Epic the Musical as well, kind of with the lessons I've learned from my own content, as well as kind of like, I kind of explained, I was like, between me, then Casper, and then you, and then Jen, like, I've kind of seen like, what ways work, what ways don't, the do's, the don'ts, the goods, the bads, all that kind of things. And so it's like really cool how I've become kind of like just sort of like just a, I guess a respected opinion in the community, I
Yeah.
guess.
For sure. And what's the channel growth been like?
Stupid. Absolutely insane. Easily doubled since February. And then some. Have I, let's see. What's 17 times 3? I don't
Like
think I've tripled
51.
yet. I'm getting real close, actually. I'm getting real close to tripling. I think I'm at like 40, like 3 these days. Um, 42,880 at the time of recording. So, yeah, another 10K and I'll have tripled my subscriber count since February.
Insane. And that's
Yeah.
like what you said, 2 years and 8 months
Yep.
versus six
Well,
months,
even more so,
basically.
the 2 and 8 was when I was watching that interview last fall. When I started
Might
reacting
have
to
been two
Epic,
and
that was at
ten.
like 2 and 10. Yeah, because February to April.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Very nearly 3 years.
Okay, so you start making the epic videos, you see that it's clearly a hit and you love it. This is what we all want to synchronize what works well
Yes.
with what we're passionate about.
Yes.
And then you bring Casper into the fold, and
Yep.
then it it,
Right
it then it
around.
performs so well that you guys create your own channel, which is also now killing. So
Yeah.
walk me through that. Walk me through bringing Casper into the mix and how it's gone since then.
I mean, right around Saga 4, I was looking at just the sort of idea of wanting to share this with other people, but also genuinely just to pull back the curtain a little bit, like, all right, how do I make more content out of this? Like, how
Yeah,
do I
yeah.
find a way to do this? And so I'm not going to say who because I don't want to put anyone on blast, but I had actually reached out to another creator asking if they wanted to potentially do a collab on this thing that was doing really well for my channel, Epic the Musical. And the response was very like, yeah, maybe eventually. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And nothing really came of that. But then a little bit of time later, I Casper and I were talking about just something else completely unrelated. And I mentioned he was like, "Your channel's going crazy lately." He's like, "Do you think I should like react to Epic on my own channel?" And I was like, "Dude, honestly, if you want to like let me get a little bit of extra success, but also send some of my crazy epic people to you. I reached out to about a collab, but that never really happened. You and I could do it. And he was like, oh, yeah, sure. That sounds kind of fun. And we were actually expecting to only do the first saga together. The
Hmm.
plan was to do Troy Saga as a collab and then use that as sort of a jumpstart for him to do the rest on his own channel. But we just riffed so well off of each other that we got to the end and Casper was like, bro, I almost want to do the rest of the series with you. And I was like, I mean, that would be fun. And like, I'm not going to say no, but like, we would have to keep splitting it. Like, I can't dedicate that much time to something that's just on your channel. And so I'd be taking like half of your views. And he was like, yeah. And so we really wishy-washied on that for a little bit until that first video went out. And all the comments were like, please keep doing this together. You're the perfect combination. The like way you riff off of each other is so perfect. And we were like, this is the rest of the series.
Hmm. And the
So
views are so good, you don't have to worry about losing some.
honestly, yeah, like the views from half the content are comparable to what either of us were getting from anything else we were doing,
Yeah.
and then some. So it worked. And then as far as the second channel, we got to our Ocean Saga animatics, and I made a joke. Actually, oh wait, no, it was Cersei Saga. And are you familiar with Hamilton?
Yeah, I have not seen the whole thing, but yes, I'm familiar.
Okay. I guess very minor spoiler alert for one of the plot beats in Act Two, but when we got to the "there are other ways" reaction, and Odysseus like pushes Cersei away and is like, "No, my wife." I made a joke into the camera. I was like, "Alexander Hamilton could never," because one of his whole plot beats is the infidelity, and so Casper was like, "I don't get this joke," and I'm like, have you not seen him? And everyone in the comments was like, Hamilton after Epic, show him Hamilton after Epic. So once we caught up to the Underworld saga, because we thought it was going to be way longer before Thunder, Jorge, you madman, we started doing a co-reaction to Hamilton. And those videos, while not quite doing epic numbers, still outperformed anything else either of us were doing. It definitely like very consistently performed under Epic and above everything else. Like in our like 10 most recent videos, like that sort of tab we get, Hamilton was always right in between everything else and Epic consistently every single time. And so we just started talking. We were like, what else do we want to do? And I was like, man, I could show you this. I could show you this. I started realizing all these musical properties he hadn't seen. And at one point we were just like, what if we just made like a second channel with it? And he was like, dude, I'm so down. And so eventually we did.
So wow. Okay. It's the growth is wild
It's wild.
and the progression's wild. So the game plan, it seems like for y'all's future as a collective reaction unit is
Yes.
like Epic, obviously, other musicals, and then also throwing in keeping some acapella and some like bass singer stuff in there as well.
Only on our solo channels.
Solo channels, not for open arms. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Open Arms Reactions is going to be focused pretty much primarily on the sort of like musical, like Broadway type things like that, or even like shows that have a musical element to it. We are very rarely like there are a couple shows like for example I'm going through Hades Town right now that people were like neither of you have seen Hades Town, you should do that on Open Arms, but I feel like the strength of Open Arms comes partially from me being able to provide Casper the extra insight of someone who's already seen it. So anything neither of us have seen, we're going through still solo.
Hmm.
Or is pretty much only for things one of us has seen and the other one hasn't. Which luckily Casper was not super into Broadway or a lot of the things I was into growing up. And so there's a lot on that. A lot of classic Disney movies, a lot of good Broadway soundtracks, even a like sort of anime with a or there's gonna be people mad at me for calling this show an anime, people who are purists, but a Western animation anime that has a very musical identity that we actually just started reactions to as of the time of recording this last week. And so kind of the idea of Open Arms reactions is like what can I show him?
Okay.
And what
Awesome.
insight can I provide as someone who's seen it and reaction he can provide as someone who hasn't?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People love that. The
Yeah,
experienced person showing inexperienced person something.
yes. And that's
Um,
the part of the reason we wanted to keep that going because that's how we started.
yeah,
Is because it was me knowing Epic showing him who didn't know Epic.
yeah. What's the upload schedule for solos and open arms?
Right now, solo, I'm sitting at Wednesday and Saturday, so two a week. I have temporarily put musical Mondays on pause, because it was just getting a little bit overwhelming for me, and I'm keeping that slot empty for when Epic exists, because trying to slot Epic into my schedule when a new thing was released was really hard for me. And so, especially since my content's becoming a little more serialized and series based now by like going through things like that, you know? And so I did musical Mondays for a bit with like Six the Musical and things like that. But now my Monday slot only exists if there's new Epic content. And I'm doing regular Wednesdays a cappella y, and then Saturdays, currently Hades Town. And then next will be a different musical show. And
Okay.
then on
Okay.
Open Arms, we are also currently at two, sitting at Tuesdays and Fridays, although we are very soon going to be adding Sundays to the mix.
So 5 videos a week
5 videos a
for
week.
both of you guys.
Yes, 5 videos a week each. So it's actually great because we've lined it up because it's two for me, two for Casper, and three for Open Arms, which means we've lined it up so there's a video a day.
Wow.
If if you subscribe to all three channels, you get a video daily.
That's so much content.
That's a lot of content.
Are you guys both? I know Casper was able to switch to full-time creator. I mean, I'm sure financially you probably could too. Are you both full-time creators at this point?
I love what I do too much. I am actively trying to convince the doctor I work for to. I already trimmed one of my days to a half day, and I'm really trying to get her to let me cut that day entirely. Because I always was only working 3 days there. 2 days a week were my dedicated content creation days. I was only working part-time. Um, and so I was working 3 days there, 2 days content creation. I am actively trying to switch those, where I'm working 2 days there and have 3 full days for content creation. But I would never quit what I do because A, love what I do. I make a difference. I've changed lives. And two, I want a long-term fallback plan for, in my now the 2 to 4 years has now reset, but I don't know if I can pull a hat trick. I don't know if I can do it again. So, when 2028 rolls around, I still need a career that I'm happy in and has development.
Thinking ahead. I love that.
Yeah.
What do
So,
you do? Are you still working with special needs kids or something else now?
yes, but in a completely different way, actually. I am currently working as a vision therapist. But visual deficits often have a lot of overlap with learning disabilities and deficits. So I still end up with a lot of ADD autistic kids, especially because as ADD, possibly spectrum myself, I relate to them a lot. And so I usually like, it's really funny. They're always like, uh, it's always like we get like a new person coming in and it's like, oh, fill out the questionnaire. And it's like, oh, like history of like autism assessment. And they're like, well, we know what schedule it's going on. And I'm like, I'm so tired. Please, someone, I love them to death, but you can't make my entire day the neurodivergent kids. It's so much. Please.
That is a lot, man.
It's a
That
lot, but I
is.
love what I do. And like I said, I see myself changing lives. Like I recently had a kid whose mom like literally called me and was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that like her teacher called me in tears today because she volunteered to read in front of class for the first time." And it was like she hated reading when she came in because her eyes couldn't do it. Her eye like they couldn't read. And I like, and she went from refusing to read and literally needing her classwork read to her as a IEP accommodation to volunteering to read out loud in front of the class. I will never not do that. This is
Yeah.
my career. This
Yeah.
is my forever. And like I said, if I can bump it down to 2 days a week, and then maybe if content creation slows down, be like, all right, I can add that day back, doctor.
Yeah, yeah,
You can put that back on the schedule. That would be like my ideal situation, is to tone it back and give a little bit more of my time to content creation. But I don't think I would ever go down to less than two. Maybe even 1.5. Like take a half day and then a full day if like content creation keeps growing like crazy. But would never quit because A, like I said, I want that fallback plan, but B, I couldn't not do that.
yeah.
It's
There's nothing really more special than having that kind of impact, especially when you can interface in real life
yes.
with the people. That makes a
Yes.
huge difference. Huge, huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things. This will be a little bit of a long episode. Hope you're okay with that.
I'm so fine with
We
that.
we got
I was getting
we
worried
got
for
so many
you.
Patreon questions. So
I know I yap. Oh my gosh, so many Patreon questions.
yeah,
Okay,
so
I'm
we're
ready,
not quite
ready.
there yet. I do have a couple more
Okay.
heavy hitters, and then we'll get into Patreon. But first, I just want
Ready
your
for the
opinion
heavies.
as someone who is like a resident expert of this piece, Epic the Musical. What is it about this piece that is so captivating and that has entranced millions and millions of people across the world?
I honestly, I think it has to be attributed to a combination of things. Like there is no one secret that I think to success that this has. I
No, yeah,
think the
no,
fact
absolutely.
that it
A whole, go ahead.
started
Yeah, it could
as
be a whole.
like, yeah, I think the fact that it started on TikTok is an underrated aspect of it because it allowed for people to discover it on their own terms and watch it grow. I don't know if you really know its history that well, but like literally in like just 2021, it was this dude, just this guy with like shaggy hair, no facial hair, and way too much dependence on the blue eye TikTok filter. He laughs at himself for it, I promise. But he would just literally like his first video was just like, I'm making a video based on the Odyssey, and here's how I'm writing Poseidon and explaining like that kind of thing. So you got to kind of see the growth of it as it came up. People got to watch it build up from the ground. People got to feel like they were a part of something as it grew. That's a huge part of it.
Mm,
Another part of it, honestly, is just Jorge's charisma. Honestly, if it was not so fun to watch his TikToks and behind the scenes, I don't think people would care as much. He is a very talented and charismatic content creator in his own right, completely aside from and like the promo vids he makes leading up to a saga, I never watch them because I have to be blind, but going back and watching them after the fact, like he did a whole series called Jay and Hermes, where Troy, the actor, they're like, wouldn't you like a taste of the power? Like
that's
that
so
super
good. Yeah,
jazzy guy.
yeah.
But it was funny because it wasn't even Odysseus and Hermes. It was literally like Jay as Jay and then Troy as Hermes doing these like buddy roommate comedy skits together. They're the funniest things on TikTok. And it would just be like Jay, like, how do I get this woman? You have to woo her. And it was like, what do you say? It's the stupidest, but it's so funny. And so that connection, that charisma, and then also just I feel like this is like the easiest thing to say, but it's also just the most true. It's just damn good music, my man. Like it's just like in addition to everything else, like there's so many reasons that you would get drawn into it. But then once you're there, the thing that keeps you there is because it's one of the best musicals that have been produced recently, just musically speaking.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of recommendations in the music industry to using TikTok and Reels as your number one source of promotion, organic promotion. If
Uh-huh.
you can get something to work organically, there's nothing better. I knew a little bit about the history because I'd talked with Tegan about it, but I didn't
Yes.
know. That's really cool that on TikTok it started at the beginning. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Start at the very beginning.
Jay being a skilled content creator and being charismatic to just start from the beginning and keep posting as it's growing, huge contributor. So then you've got this family that's been with you since the beginning.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. And then yeah, of course, musically, it's extremely interesting and captivating, which is more what I talk about
Yes.
in on my side of things. Um,
Exactly.
what was I going to add on to that? There was another thing. Oh yeah, just the stories that it's based on is something that everyone seems to be really captivated by mythology and Greek mythology and the story
Yes.
of Odysseus. Like that is you taught who's going to say, "Nah, I don't really care." Like that is such a
And
good
that's
base to build the foundation on because people just care about that stuff. They
absolutely.
just find it really interesting.
And that's the other thing too, is like that's a great point. Like just the inherent draw of the like interest people have in this kind of mythology, the Greek mythology, like there is absolutely a pipeline of the people around my age who grew up on the Percy Jackson books
Hmm.
and then maybe hot take don't really like Chalice of the Gods and the new books that much. And so they're getting their fit like they're like, ah, well, and not to stereotype fans of a series or fans of an entire genre, but I'm not going to lie and say that there isn't also like a pretty significant like queer demographic in both of those as well. So it's
Mm.
like these like series where people who are different because like Percy Jackson, all of them have like ADHD as part of their character. So you get these people who are neurodivergent and possibly finding some of that you can find somewhere to belong feeling in their own history of like maybe queer identity and things like that. A lot of the community I know that loves these books are your neurodivergent, queer, things like that. So they grow up on these books. And where do they go after these books? Musical theater. And then what comes along? Something that's musical theater and Greek mythology. That's like the
Yeah.
natural pipeline for all the Percy Jackson kids. So honestly, you're absolutely right that what it's based off of absolutely has a huge part on its appeal and growth as well.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. But yeah, absolutely. All those things come together to make this just like
Yes.
perfect pipeline, as you said. A couple more things. So one is I'm really interested in like if you have any kind of specific goals for your content creation, for collaborations, for the channel, overall career goals, right? We know you've got your forever job working with the
Yeah,
kids. So that's wonderful.
of course.
So that aside, and then after that, I want to talk about get real and talk about struggles you've faced being a creator.
Okay, I'll prep for that. Goodness, because whew.
You
But
know what?
as
I have
far
a
as
better
these
idea.
short-term
I have a
goals,
better idea. Let's flip it. Let's talk struggles first, and then we'll
ooh,
end with goals.
love that. Love that. Um, Struggles, I mean, I already told you this, but it's kind of funny. It's funny, not funny, but I went to see my primary care physician for the first time in a couple of months. We were just chatting about life. I was kind of explaining everything, and I walked away from that appointment with the business cards of two local therapists and a new anti-anxiety medication. It was actually, I didn't tell you this part. It was I'm making light of it because humor is like just the way I cope with things, but it was really funny because they had a new sort of like mental health form when I came in, and as I was filling it out, I was like, oh, like 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. And then as I got towards the end, I was like, okay, like 3, 4, 3. It was like out of four. So I noticed like towards the end, I was bigger numbers. But in my head, I was like, okay, so overall, like if you added this all together, it's a very middle of the road score. They're very equal in like the high numbers and the low numbers. And then I brought it in and she looks at it. She literally grabs a Sharpie, draws a line at the halfway mark, and goes, this top half is our depression screener. The bottom half is our anxiety screener. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay. I did not get a middle of the road score on the mental health exam. I got a really low score on the depression screener and a really high score on the anxiety screener. That probably
oh
should be
no.
something we talk about. But yeah, I was
Oh
looking up
no.
like that's a pretty equal amount of high numbers and low numbers. That's fine. Then she split it in half and I was like, oh,
Oh,
I see.
interesting.
Once you go below that big black line, it is mostly
You're
threes
like,
and fours. So
you're like,
I
interesting.
On a
Wow.
new
Okay.
anti-anxiety medication to kind of help out with that. But yeah, it's a
Okay.
lot. And the I think the biggest struggle that I have with letting myself take a break is the fact that this is the first time in my life where I genuinely like I've never worked for commission before. I've never had anything like that. So there's absolutely been jobs where I know if I work harder, I will have more success. There have never been jobs until this one where I know if I work more, I will have more success.
Mm, mm,
But
hmm.
the idea of like, I could get like, if I get to the end of a recording session, it's 11 p.m. and I'm not tired, I can either shut off my screens and let my brain start getting tired, or I can say, hey, if I record another thing for Patreon right now, that's content. And then I do, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's
The hamster
the
wheel.
first, exactly. It's the first time in my life where every time I make the choice to just do a bit more, it gives back. And man, that's addicting.
Yeah, I
So
could see
addicting,
it.
it almost broke my family friendly filter there. You see that?
Curse words are allowed on the podcast if you're interested. I did say
I
slut
think
for
that
I said slut for sunshine
would,
earlier, so
I think that would break people's brains a little bit, but we'll see if this is the first one that actually
fair,
slips through.
yeah, fair enough. So, okay, so you're feeling the addiction to creating content and you see that it is kind of a one-to-one. If you put in more work, you will get more
Yeah.
results kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where do you think the anxiety comes from? Is that from pressure in the community or trying to keep up a schedule or what?
Schedule's definitely a big one. Schedule's huge, especially with the collaborative channel now. The fact that those recordings can't just happen when my ADD is keeping me up and I can't fall asleep. I can go record three Hadestown episodes, but I can't record a new episode of Hamilton because
Yeah.
Casper's asleep. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So the definitely playing Tetris with my schedule is a lot of that anxiety lately. Finding just the time to do everything while I am still 3 days a week at my other job, while still wanting to, spend time with my wife,
Yeah.
have like fulfilling real life things. I definitely, and luckily I expressed this to Casper and he like really helped me. He was like, I'll make the schedule for next week. You find the time. But like, I think when I realized like, no, this isn't okay for me is when I was trying to plan a like wonderful surprise date night dinner for my wife's birthday. And I literally couldn't find a spot to do it. And I was like, that can't be okay. So I shared that with Casper and he was super understanding. He was super helpful in helping me clear a spot on the schedule. He was like, we'll record this. He was actually super sweet. It was ironically, I'm saying like it was a good thing that I found this. It probably wasn't actually that smart of a choice for my health to do this, but there was one day where, with our time zones, instead of recording at our normal time, he woke up early at like 7 a.m., which for me is like 10 p.m. So
Mm.
he woke up early, and then we were recording till like 2 a.m. for me. So instead of our normal slot, which is like afternoon for me, night for him, it was like 10 to 2 for me, and then like 7 to 11 a.m. for him. So we were both wildly, it was the funniest set of reactions we've ever done. But by making that accommodation, I was able to clear up an entire Saturday to spend with my wife as like a late birthday celebration. And oh my God, that dinner was good. But so just like the idea of fitting my family and my channel and Casper recordings and me. And then like even like don't feel like bad at all, but like today would normally be like the day I'm recording content, but I had my interview with you, and then straight after, I have a call with a music producer who's helping me with my first EP, actually, which we can talk about.
Oh,
But I'm working
yeah.
on my first EP, and so I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna record today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is good. This is I'm really enjoying actually like chatting with you at length.
Yes.
we haven't really gotten the chance to do it all that much.
No, 100%.
Do you envision scaling back the channels to accommodate for more family time if it's causing a lot of stress, and especially if you're going to be producing an EP? I know all about throwing a big project on top of a bunch of other big projects.
No, I'm fine. No. Um, big facade aside, kind of bringing it back to the real person. I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I don't know if I'm going to bring back Musical Mondays once Epic is done or if I'm going to stick with just two. I'm I don't know. I mean, I don't want to scale back. Of course I
Mm,
don't. It's
yeah.
it's it's addicting. And if I'm able to cut an entire day off my real job, um, I that'll help a lot. And I'm slowly just trying to find like what that system looks like. But right now I don't know how to answer that question yet. It's all
One one
it's
one
all
week at a
too
time.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about this EP.
Um,
What's going on?
there has been a song that I wrote at 3 a.m. after basically a couple months after the worst summer of my life, when I was staying up literally because and again, I'm so sorry to the viewers for the absolute emotional roller coaster as we keep going back to this, but it is a huge part of everything that has formed who I am. But before I was able to get therapy to work through it, one of my PTSD symptoms was essentially dreaming or even just like late night processing of reliving what happened to me, the emotions, even like the physical sensations because of how crazy the body and PTSD are. And so I would be like re-experiencing this. So literally, like there were points where I was intentionally keeping myself up so that I couldn't close my eyes and remember.
Mm,
I know, right? Not a very fun answer to that,
not
but
supposed to be.
it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
But so at that time, I wrote a verse at 3 a.m. that just said, it was, "Why are my dreams dictated by my demons? How can the past keep me presently awake? When we were kids, they said, follow all your dreams, but now I'm up at 3 a.m. just to hide from my own dreamscape." And I wrote that and then slowly but surely tried to write some lyrics around it, but never really finished it. And then I got on a call with this absolutely lovely woman named Tegan Early.
Oh, we
And
love you,
we
Tegan.
love Tegan Early. And as we were doing a collaborative reaction to her own music, the Mother EP, and one of her lines uses the word dreamscape. And that was supposed to be the
Ding,
name of
ding,
the
ding.
song. And so I mentioned that, and I was like, that's actually really special to me because that's the name of a song I wrote and never finished a while ago. And she literally stopped the recording on our SyncWatch website and said, "Why haven't you finished it then?" And I was like, I don't know. I just never did. And she's like, "All right, what's stopping you?" And I was like, she's very intimidating in her support. It's very, very aggressive support. It's like, well, why
Wonderful.
not? What's stopping you? And I'm like, I
Take
don't know.
action.
We're
Yeah.
supposed to be talking about your music. Leave me alone. But so I ended up finishing that song into a product I'm really happy with. And then the sort of only feedback I was getting is like, because this was like very much so just me processing the emotions of what happened to me. The only I got like I sent it to Casper, I sent it to Tegan, I sent it to a few other people, and the only negative like feedback I've like consistently received was, "This feels like part of a story. This does not feel complete."
Hmm.
And so I was like, do I want to change the song or anything like that? But I've really been listening to the Mother EP, which is a very like story-based EP. It tells a story across the whole EP. And I was like, if this is the middle of my story, what would it be like to write the start and end in song form?
Yeah.
And so now I'm working. I think it's technically an LP, or is the EP or LP the shorter one?
EP.
Okay, no, it is an EP. So it's just going to be a three-song drop. But so it's going to cut. Dreamscape is going to exist. That first song I wrote, Dreamscape's going to exist as that second one, and I am writing a first song called "Flightless Bird" and or a third song that is currently under the working title of just "Good," but that's probably going to be changed.
Cool. Really cool. LP actually might be the shorter one. I think it's EP is extended play and LP is
Yeah,
limited
that's what
play.
I was thinking, but I also thought I remember. I don't know.
I'm so used to I've never done an LP. I've always
Yeah,
like short projects have always been EPs, so I just think
yeah.
of the short one being the EP. That's really cool. What kind of genres is it in and what kind of styles are you pulling from?
It's very, I would say, like modern pop rock almost. Like
Oh, love
think
that.
like a like definitely pulling like some Imagine Dragons and AJR. I knew you would like that one. Literally, the my music producer at one point, I was explaining the vibes of Flightless Bird, and like the way I was singing it, almost I unintentionally, because I wasn't using a metronome, had like kind of a swung vibe to it. And at one point, the words edited his or exited his mouth of just like, so what if with the instrumentals we went for like a swung whatever it takes? And I'm like, that is the coolest combination of words I have ever heard in my life. Yes, please. So Flightless Bird definitely takes a like swung whatever it takes vibe. Song three is very AJR. And then Dreamscape, a little less rock. It brings it back a little bit more to like, honestly, the people that I connected it the most to for song two have you listened to the Mother EP, Tegan's work?
No, I haven't. It's on my
Okay.
list.
First of all, recommend wholeheartedly. But like the three songs slash artists I pulled in for Dreamscape are from Tegan EP and then two smaller artists named Taking on Towers and The Classic Crime. So I don't think you would be able to really connect, but it's definitely toned back a little bit more just like guitar. I'm really trying to think of a modern artist with a similar vibe, like a more well-known artist with a similar vibe to what I'm going for, and I can't think of one, but
Okay,
I think you would
cool.
like The Precipice, which is by The Classic Crime, so I'll have to send you that one. By the way,
Yeah.
y'all, Classic Crime, that's one of my number one underrated bands. If you want to check out a really cool song that also has one of my favorite examples of like my favorite musical technique, that suspension I talk about all the time, The Precipice by The Classic Crime, that's like my go-to for anyone who's asking me like underrated band, The Classic Crime. They're a sort of indie band in Seattle. Not, I wouldn't say still indie, but definitely not huge either.
Awesome. And what does the production side look like? Are you writing music lyrics and then you collaboratively allow your music producer to kind of fill it out with a lot of instrumentation and
Exactly correct.
okay.
That's exactly what we're doing. So the person actually, depending on, I've teased this project before, but I haven't talked about who's on it. Depending on when this comes out, this might be me announcing this, or I might have already announced it somewhere else, but I'm genuinely okay doing that. The guy doing the production is actually JP Warner, the guy who did Tegan's production for the Mother EP
Cool.
and all of her music,
Cool.
and the guy who did the early mixing and mastering for Epic before Jorge took it over to do himself. So I'm getting to work with JP
Fantastic.
Warner, and he's absolutely
Fantastic.
incredible.
Um, how are you? Are you tracking your own vocals or are you guys meeting up in person?
We're going to be meeting up in person. So I'm going to be going
Okay.
out to
To
Chicago.
Chicago? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. How much do I want to announce here? This is going to be kind
This
of a fun little
this will
sneaky thing,
probably
but
this can come out whenever we want it to. So probably November, but
okay, fair enough. I mean, by that point, there's probably gonna be word out. But yeah, no,
okay.
I am going to be flying to Chicago to be working out those vocals in person, which is also because they're in the same city, going to allow Tegan to
Again.
give some of the I have for my big bombastic third song. The chorus is going to have a lot of harmonies, and Tegan's going to be one of them. We're going to
Cool.
bring in some actual multi-voice harmonies in, and Tegan's going to get to lend her voice to my third song as like just kind of a like backing vocals feature, but it's going to be really cool.
Awesome. Let me know when you're going.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make a pilgrimage to Chicago at some point.
fair enough.
Tegan's there. A lot of opera friends are there, and I haven't gone. I've only been to Chicago for a weekend like a decade
I
ago.
might be,
So,
I don't know if it's going to be for this trip because it's soon, but I might be going literally in like a month. Obviously, that's pretty short notice, but Tegan, because her music is very spooky, is trying to do her first ever live performance the week of October. And I think
ah,
they said they solidified something for October 30th. They were like, venues were a
wow.
nightmare on the actual 31st, but I think they're doing a performance on the 30th. And so, actually, when I do my call with JP right after this, part of that conversation was going to be chatting about that,
Okay,
about
cool.
those plans.
I'm actually going to be seeing Tegan in Los Angeles because we're both going to be there at the same time
Oh,
next
that's
month.
fun.
Bobby's coming out here to stay for like a week, 10 days,
Ooh.
and we are going to LA to see Imagine Dragons on October
Awesome.
22nd.
That's sick.
We're probably going to be staying with Mia Sano, and we're going to see Jonathan Young and Colin McGinnis and all those
Oh,
guys. And
man.
Tegan also is just happens. She's also going to be there the same week, so
Wow.
we're going to link up. Okay, now musical career goals, and
Yes.
then Patreon questions, and that'll do it.
All right. Well, we kind of segued perfectly into it because one of my big goals right now is releasing my own original music for the first time ever. I've only done covers in the past. I have never done anything original. I mean, I've done a couple things that were like some original lyrics, like some parodies, that were like over instrumentals and like use the same thing but change the lyrics. I've done like a bit of that if you want to count that as like as close to original as you can get. But for the most part, it's been very cover heavy. And so releasing my own original music for the first time is very new, very intimidating, but that's definitely my biggest current goal, I would say.
Okay.
And then as
Anything specific for the channel?
for the I mean, this really means nothing. Like, it's very arbitrary except for the one thing you get. But my biggest thing, like, as we talked earlier, I still thought my channel might be kind of on the decline. And like, I was like, I don't know how long it's going to last. I was like, I wonder if I can keep it going just to 100K, which now feels way more doable, but
Yeah.
purely just because I was like, here's the thing, the numbers will mean that like in 15 years when my kids are like oh, you did YouTube, I don't want to pull up like a screenshot of analytics. I want to be like, I want to take them into like the movie room and be like, look at that play button, I earned that. There
Yeah.
it is, the play. So like one of my weird arbitrary goals is 100K, just so when I eventually stop doing creation, because I know this isn't going to be forever, I want to be able to like when we decorate a future house be like, look at this thing that like is a physical representation of multiple years of long nights and hard work. So like I said, it's an arbitrary number, but that
I
sort of
love
physical
that. No,
representation
I
would be
love that.
nice to
It
have.
feels good to get the plaque. You'll like having the plaque, and I'm sure you'll get
Yes.
there. I have no
And it
doubt.
would be cool to, because honestly, with the growth now, it's not unreasonable. It would be cool in the future to like in a room be able to have like Mortius play button, open arms play button right next to each other, hung
Also
up on the walls.
totally possible. Yeah.
So, but honestly, like since this massive spike of growth, I haven't even slowed down long enough to figure out what the goals are. My goals are collaborate as much as possible. I mean, I would say one of my big goals is get to be part of one of the projects
Sure. Yeah, that's a
that
great goal.
like I'm getting to react to. I feel like there was a point in time where my fame was getting like my notoriety was just big enough that like I was getting so close to being like, oh, I wonder if I'll be able to sneak into like just one of the voice play minis at one point. Like I'd been in talks with like Caesar and even a couple others of like it would be fun if it ever works out, and then like it kind of never did. And then like I've talked to Jay a couple times, and I'm just like, hey, if you ever need just like literally just like an extra soldier voice for like the Peter cover your ears. No, I'm kidding. I know you know I know you know the Odyssey, so I can say this without it being spoilers. But like if you ever need like an extra voice for like the suitors or anything like that, like just like that, just like let me be something. Like I just want to be part of something, you
Well,
know?
that's the beautiful thing about something like a musical is you do have the chorus. I mean,
Yes.
there are a lot of voices in there to be filled. Whether it's, I mean, chorus. I've always wondered because I don't think Jay has done this in Epic yet, but gone for like the Morbin Tabernacle like 500 voice choir sound. I
Yeah.
don't think I've heard that in Epic yet. So I was
No.
wondering, I was talking to Tegan about it. I was wondering if Jay was gonna do that or include that
Ooh,
somewhere or do another project with that because I feel like that's something that would be really cool in Epic. Just
that's
the
fair.
because there have been some
Yeah.
epic choir moments, but not the hundreds of voices choir moments. And it's
Yes.
like at this point, he could
Oh,
get those hundreds
I
of
mean,
voices to record.
I would say the closest thing, it's still definitely not the sound of hundreds, but in I know your reaction to it isn't out yet, and at this rate probably won't even be before this episode is out.
Mm.
But to the Underworld saga, No Longer You, when it's that it's no
Mm.
longer you, ah, do,
Yeah,
da, like
yeah,
that's got some pretty cool choir things to it, the sort of choir souls, but I think that's
for
the
sure.
closest we've got to like a big voice chorus in Epic.
For sure. Okay, one more thing. If that's a goal to be singing on like a
Yes.
big project like that and making your own EP, are you intentionally like training your voice these days and taking lessons, voice lessons, coachings? Are you working on technique and stuff like that? As someone who
Yes
does it
and
hours a
no.
day, I'm really
Yeah,
curious.
exactly. No. Honestly, yes and no. I am always trying to work like there is never a day where I am not at least once singing to get better. I'm not taking any official lessons right now. I would love to if I have the time,
Yeah,
but if
yeah.
I'm able to find the time in my schedule. But like I said, it's very much all kind of about self-betterment, kind of finding like when I release a project, I'll kind of go back through it and be like, all right, where are the parts a month later that I'm kind of critical of? And then I kind of work on and grind out those parts. It's kind of like, I guess the analogy I can make is like, I don't have a personal trainer, but I'm able to see which parts like I'm not aren't to the weights that I want yet and work on those parts more, you know?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I guess that's kind
If
of my
that ever,
answer.
if that becomes like a top priority, like performing, I would definitely recommend it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's so critical to every performer on even the highest level.
Oh yeah.
Um, Big Brev, to pitch Big Brev, is one of the best, most talented, gifted singers I have ever heard in my life.
Wow.
And he does have a voice studio with his wife. And they teach all, I mean, he's literally sung opera professionally, but also can sing pop and rock
Yeah.
like fully professionally. He can riff, he's got crazy range. If at some point you're interested in a voice studio, I would definitely consider Big Brev.
Okay, I'll add it to my
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
brain.
Okay. Let's get into Patreon questions.
Hi, Peter's patron. Patreon? That's
Patreon patrons,
hello.
I want to do them all because the Patreon community loves you and we've been, like we said, we both joined at the same time.
Oh
So
yeah, and
as
we've
people
been
are aware of
collaborating
me,
for years.
yeah, so I think we owe it to these people because they're big fans of yours. You'll probably recognize half the names on here.
And that was still, that's just the tiniest thing before we hop into it. That still is actually the really funniest thing. Like our first collab we ever did, this is totally going to show off my vanity, but partially it's for the vanity and like the fact that I like the recognition of being talked about, but also just because I like seeing and like being like, oh, are there people who know me so I can engage with them? Whenever I join a new reaction server, I will actually search for my name in like the Discord just to see like, are people talking about it?
Yeah.
I joined this big name reactor and I was like, now I'm curious if anyone's talked about it. There was one single result and it was someone posting in the memes channel our the like Misty
Missy Mouse
Mountains
Country
Country
Roads. Yeah.
Road. Like the one mention of me was from 2 years ago and it wasn't for any of my reaction content. It was that collaboration and it was like
That's
people
so
dying
funny.
laughing under it and I'm like, that's funny. So yeah, we've been collaborating for years. So
You
let's
know that
hear what a lot
that
of our
video
shared
that
patrons
that
ask.
that video did really well.
Video did crazy.
It was funny. Okay, first one from Jen Fraley.
Great.
Now that you have moved and had time to settle in, what do you love slash hate the most about being on the left coast versus when you were in Vegas? They said where you were before.
Hmm. I love a lot of it. I love the weather. I love this place that we live in. I love my job. Like, honestly, I would probably want to answer what I don't like, and then you can just assume anything else I didn't say is what I love. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I really, really genuinely love so much of this. I love living in a small town again for the first time in 8 years because, I went from small town Washington to San Diego, then Vegas.
Yeah.
So big, big cities. I love living in a small town again. I love the people. God, what don't I like about living here? Like, not that much. The 3 months of gloom are a bit rough on the seasonal depression since I got used to San Diego and Vegas for a bit. Those can kind of get me down. But fun fact, I actually like the sad lights.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
heard of that?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Because content creation is supposed to be such an uplifting thing for me, and that can be really hard during like these months. The key light I use is a seasonal depression light. That's the key light for my content. So when it's like
Amazing.
the dead of winter and I'm having seasonal depression, but I still need to be my content creation self, I basically have artificial sunlight on my face while I'm being in character.
That's brilliant. That's such a
And
good
the key,
hack.
yeah, the key
Such a
light
good
I
hack.
use is literally a seasonal seasonal affective disorder light. That's like a really like expensive like artificial sunlight
Yeah.
thing,
Fantastic.
and
Okay,
that's the
so
key light
so
I
three
use.
months of seasonal depression and you love everything else.
Yeah,
Okay.
honestly,
Also, if we've answered any of these things before, you can just give like a
yes,
quick
yeah.
overview, which is this next one. This is from Amanda Knott. What do you want to be when you grow up? Question mark, smiley face. On a more serious note, is YouTube what you do full time? If not, what else do you do?
Yep. So vision therapy, which again, I'm extremely passionate about, changing lives literally every single time I go in. Like, that sounds egotistical, but I'm watching people just, I mean, if your visual system doesn't work correctly, that's going to affect literally everything in your life. I used to make a joke. You're going to like this. I'll sort of bring it back to what we do. I used to make a joke in my orientations when I'm explaining why the visual system is so important. I'm like, every single thing you've done today, except listening to music, has in some way used your visual system. And then my fellow vision therapist, who's been with her for 20 years, everything I know comes from her. I love her so much. She's my work mom. Absolutely adore her. Heard me say that for the first time because she happened to not be with a patient when I was giving my orientation. She pops in and she says, "Do you just say that listening to music doesn't use your visual system?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "Are you ever listening to a song and you can imagine and visualize what's happening in the song?" And I went, "Yeah." She says, "You ever listening to a song and it activates a memory of where you were the last time you heard that song? You ever have that song that just shunts you back to that one memory?" That's audio visual integration. That is still the visual processing system, the cortexes that handle memory and that handle internal visualization being activated by music. So even listening to music still deals with the visual system, literally everything we do. And so if there's deficits in that system, it affects everything. And
Mm.
so if I'm able to change that for someone, I mean, yeah, I'm so passionate about it.
What is music like for someone who was born blind?
Good question.
Because
I I'm not sure. I don't work. I mean, oh,
the
it
it wouldn't
sounds
it
ironic, but
wouldn't
I
trigger the.
can't really do vision therapy on someone who is blind.
No, yeah, that was more not a
Or just a
rhetorical
general
question,
question.
but it's interesting
Gotcha.
talking about like
Mhm.
someone with visual memories, but if someone
Yeah.
doesn't have visual memories,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, moving on. Um, Amy Bruderly, tell us about your LARP character and some fun stories about LARPing.
Where's, where's my sword? Hold on. Where's my... Yes,
Yes.
I love LARPing. I have two LARP characters. One I don't think I've ever talked about in content before because it was my first LARP character. They're not very like complex or interesting, but they are still kind of fun to just play like a basic sort of commoner adventure character, especially against the colorful characters in my LARP group. Sometimes it's kind of fun to just have it be to have it be just like this crazy like tiefling thing, this elf, and now we're all playing games with this human in a brown coat because he got it at a thrift store. So I play this like very simple character that sometimes leads to very comedic moments just because of how simple he is. And I sometimes will really play it up where like some of the other people will be like, we like, oh, this big threat, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, we could just invite him over for soup. It's fine. Like, I think if we just sit him down over a good bowl of something warm, we can all work this problem out. It's no problem. Like, just silly things like that. And then my other character is Azure, who is a pirate who or like pirate inspired, definitely not a pirate because piracy is illegal in the world.
Sure.
Definitely not a pirate, just looks like, talks like, and has the backstory
A
of one, but
merchant sailor. A
totally
merchant
not a
sailor,
pirate, a
Mortius.
merchant sailor,
Merchant sailor.
exactly. um but so and that one's really really fun because my whole gimmick for that is, oh god, this is going to lead us down a rabbit hole if you ask too many questions, but her whole gimmick is that she was cursed to only speak in haikus. I have a bizarre talent I have always had to just be able to filter my words through a 575
Huh.
weirdly quickly.
Huh.
As a kid, or not even a kid, but as a teen, I would always watch this creator called Jax Films, and he had a series called News and Haikus, where he would like report like news, but always just like condense like an entire news story just into a 575. So it was always like the simplest version of news, and it was really funny. And I loved that so much that I would try to do it myself with things, and I just got weirdly good at it to the point where now like
Huh.
I can kind of do it without thinking.
Awesome.
Like I could just be like, it comes natural, it's not very hard for me, and it's really fun.
Huh.
And I can just kind of just like boop, boop, boop. And I can, and
Nice.
literally when I'm Azure, I will go an entire day where I don't say anything that is not through a filter of a haiku. And that was like, basically, it was like, she flirted with a sea nymph that cursed her to only speak in poetry was like the whole gimmick behind it. So it's really fun.
You've seen
And like the whole pirate outfit, I actually made my like I sewed the shirt
mm,
myself so it would be authentic and it's really cool.
you've seen Avatar, of course,
Of
haven't you?
course.
That episode where Sokka is doing
Yes.
the haikus
That
with the
no, you're so right. That was actually the start of it. I can't believe you just said that. Yeah, no, it was Sokka's, and I started being kind of interested in that. And then Jack's films made me get better at it. And that, yes, you're 100% right.
I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. And
That's
so
in
it's I'm able to
Tale
just do that weirdly fast. Tales of
that's
Ba
in
Sing Se,
Tales
yeah.
of Bossing Say, exactly.
The
Okay.
tricking you into smiling before they
Yeah. Okay, we've got a number of questions left. Let's do a little more rapid fire because
Okay,
we're
so
already
sorry.
no, we're it's my fault. We're already an hour and 40 into this chat.
Oh no. Okay, I'll be fast.
Rapid fire. This is from Shadow Person 11.
Hi,
What
Shadow Person.
what music do you listen to that might surprise those who follow your channels?
Honestly, not a lot. I'm a pretty by the book. Like what you see is what you get. I love Broadway, Panic at the Disco, Imagine Dragon. Like pretty much if you combine like what I know Peter's musical interests are with everything I cover on the channel, that's basically what I choose to listen to. Like it's either Broadway, a cappella, or that kind of like pop punk kind of thing. I
Pop
mean,
rock, yeah.
I guess the younger demographic who doesn't know like this generation might be surprised if they learned I still rock out to like Good Charlotte, Green Day, like those
Ooh,
kind of
so good.
ones.
Yeah.
That like sort of early 2000s, like almost like pop punk kind
Yeah.
of.
Some of my
But I would
faves.
say that's like Good Charlotte, like this is the anthem. So, like that's like the most unmortious music I listen to. For
Okay.
the most part, it's pretty much what you'd expect.
Right on. Dorothy Rosenberg has a couple questions. I found you because we seem to share a love of a cappella singing. What was your entry point, and what was your entry point that sparked your appreciation of modern a cappella?
I mean, my entry point in big quotes would definitely just be pentatonics in high school because it's fascinating. But I honestly, kind of what we were talking about after 4 years or so, they weren't really necessarily innovating as much. They were kind of just making the same thing, which isn't bad. What they were making is still amazing. I don't think they decreased in quality. I just don't think they changed that much. And I
Mhm.
wasn't enjoying them as much as I did. And then early on in San Diego, I was really into Panic at the Disco. I still love Panic, but I was really into Panic. My favorite song at the time was Death of a Bachelor, and I came across Voice Play's Death of a Bachelor. And I was like, this is just voices, and especially because Pentatonics at the time was not really leaning into like Avi's crazy lows that he's capable of. So that
Mhm.
was also the first time it was like hearing Jeff be like, Death of a Bachelor. And being like, what did you just, people can do that?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was my like entry into being fascinated.
Okay.
Like pentatonics was my entry into listening to acapella. Voice play Death of a Bachelor was my entry into being fascinated by it.
Awesome. Okay, next question from Dorothy. We have covered this, so just to rehashing.
Yep,
Similarly,
short
can you
version.
trace your affection for musicals? And she thanks you for doing musicals.
Yep,
Um,
100% all
she
the way
she
back
enjoys
to
your
high
time.
school. I mean, yeah, all the way back to a young kid as far as like Disney musicals, and then all the way from the beginning of high school as far as stage musicals. Yeah,
Awesome. Okay, Nora says, puppy tax, show us a doggy or risk being pouted at.
I had her ready
Is this a new dog?
by like a year and a half at this point.
I've never seen this dog.
This is Kara.
Hi, Kara. Oh,
Yes, this is our baby.
oh
Yeah,
my
we would have gotten her,
gosh.
yeah, about, well, like a year and 3 months at this point, I guess. Because we got her like May of 2023.
Oh my gosh, so
Yeah.
cute. Okay, you've paid your puppy
Oh,
tax.
stinky
Great,
breath.
great job, Nora, for bringing that. Risk being pouted at. I think that's really funny. Diane Antos, which character would you want to be and why? I'm guessing they're talking about Epic.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give the short answers for both, and unfortunately won't be able to elaborate on as much as I
Yes.
want. Well, if if vocals are being kept in mind, like if I have my vocal box, I can't answer that question because it's introduced in the next saga. But
Oh
you guys
no.
probably all know who I'm talking about. Well, actually, you know what? This is just going to
It,
spoil
it's a
how high his voice is, but you know this character from the Odyssey, Telemachus.
sure, sure, sure.
Telemachus's voice is beautiful and fits so well into my range. So if it had to be my voice box, Telemachus. If it could just be anyone I wanted, Polites. If it was anyone across all of Broadway, Emmett Forrest. There you go. Keep going.
Wow. Nailed. Okay. Dorima, what is your favorite type of sword?
I'm not super into swords specifically. So if they mean bladed weapon, then this is my answer, the glaive. I love the glaive. I think it's really, really cool. I think it's second only to the halberd, but LARP halberds are way more expensive. So I love pole arms. Like I don't know if you could tell how long this was when I first brought it out,
Oh,
but
yeah.
and so I love pole arms to that. So I don't
Cool.
really know the different kinds of swords very well because swords aren't my thing. But if you're just saying thing to stab people with, definitely like a good glaive.
So I'm a big Diablo 2 guy, or
Okay.
was. So I know names of weapons and
Yeah.
armor because of that game, which is like a just a weird random base of knowledge, but
Yeah.
like any kind of like axe or pole arm or
Yeah.
mace or sword, I'm like, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because of Diablo.
100%.
Okay, great. Cassandra Simmons, what is your favorite character motif and what is your favorite way a character motif has been used? Of course, this is about Epic. Must be.
I am assuming it's about Epic, but I'm going to answer very short for not Epic because my favorite character motif is Death's Whistle in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That is the greatest character motif that is terrifying. It's
Oh,
so
that's
good.
so weird. Zoom cuts out like all non-vocal noise.
Oh no! Well,
So I couldn't hear.
know that I did the whistle. For
Okay,
those of you who have seen the movie.
now give us your epic one as well.
Yes. I mean, it's an easy answer because it's literally the first one in the musical, but I am just anytime the dun 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 like comes in like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
dun 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 dun, or maybe the dun 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 from Athena, that piano
Oh, yeah, it's so
has to be one of
nice.
those two.
Awesome. Okay. Mindy Weiss.
Okay.
What is your favorite character? Why and how can you relate to them? Also epic. Give
Oh,
us
did they?
both. Give us epic and
Okay.
non-epic.
Well, anyone who knows my content or the only tattoo I have will not be at all surprised by this, but the character, well, man, honestly, the older I get and the farther away I get from his age, the less I think I can actually say for all of my for every single year of my life that made me who I am, my answer is Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet.
Oh, love Jim.
I might be getting too old and boring and settled to actually say the character I relate to the most is the big like solar surfing,
Yeah,
follow your
yeah.
dreams, rattle the stars guy. But from like age, I would say 12 to 24, that would be my answer. Now, God, I don't even know who I would say my now life feels the most relatable to.
Let's go to epic then.
Honestly, I don't feel, I mean, definitely I would say some from Polities purely just because of just like that kind of happy, upbeat vibe. But
Hmm.
I also think that I'm not as naive as Polities is portrayed. Like I've
Yeah,
kind of over time. So honestly, I don't relate to the epic characters that much. Any of them really. There are
fair.
moments I might relate to, but characters overall, I would say Polities is the closest, but there's
Do you
no
have a
one where I'm
favorite?
like, that's my self-insert character.
Is Paul T your favorite character as well? He's not around very long.
Polities is my,
Isn't
yeah,
isn't
exactly.
that isn't that cr-
Well,
isn't that weird?
my favorite character is around even less, but just because she's so fun, favorite character and favorite song are in the
Oh my
same
God.
place. I love
Aeolus.
Aeolus.
Yes, I knew it.
Aeolus is my favorite character in Epic. I adore her. I have like that was my vocal stem forever. I'll just walk around the house and be like, ha ha ha. Oh, it's such a good
Oh
song.
man,
Favorite song in Epic, and
such a good song.
yeah,
Okay. Mortius, any final words to the fans, the people watching before we
that was
sign
all of them.
off?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Um,
It's like
I
11.
don't think so. Yeah, I want to thank you guys very, very much for hanging out with this episode. If you're here from my Epic reactions, just know that Peter has checked out Epic on his own channel. So the channel you're currently on, if you're watching the YouTube one, go support it for Epic.
Woo!
Also, if you are here from Peter, I do my own content. So that's why these things are great, sending people to each other. And please definitely make sure, I don't know, I doubt by the time this goes up that things will be like ready for pre-saving, but definitely be looking out on my social medias and things like that for my EP because I'm really proud of it and really excited to bring it into the world. And definitely be looking out for that if you can. Um, Other than that, I don't think I have too much to say other than thank you, Peter, for welcoming me on. It was genuinely a blast to chat with you.
Course. Appreciate it, man. Really good chatting with you. And everyone, Bass Gang Volume 4, May the Bass be with you, Volume 4. Go check that out.
Yes.
That should be out around now. So
And if it's out around now, that also means my reactions to it are going to be out by around now because
let me just
I
I haven't
will
even
always hop right on for volume four.
Mortius, the people are not. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I know we say this, but like for so
Yeah.
long, the Bass Gang's really just done what we felt like doing. This is
Yeah.
doing what we felt like doing, but combining it with exactly what people want to hear from us and doing it bigger and better than ever. It's
Bigger and better and bassier. Oh, I'm so
crazy.
excited.
Yeah. Okay. That's my pitch for Bass
Cool.
Gang.
Yes, and once you've watched all the base gang things that are so super amazing, and especially if you guys are coming up from Epic and aren't there from the old ones, there is a ton of genuinely amazing music produced by this. I don't know what direction I am. For the Zoom call, you're below me, but wherever you are, there is a ton of amazing music produced by this man and three other amazing singers, and I have reactions to every single one of them. So please go check out theirs and check out my reactions to them. And as always, gals, blokes, and all other folks.
Gals, blokes, and all other folks. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Mortius. If you did, I am sure you will enjoy this conversation with another fellow reaction and analysis genius. This is Lolly Wren of the Fairy Voice Mother. Go on. Click it.